Welcome to CivilNet. On January 28, the European Court of Human Rights held a grand chamber hearing in the case of Perincek versus Switzerland. Now, joining me from Brussels to talk about the hearing is Bedo Demirjian. He is the Communications and Public Relations Officer for the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy. Bedo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You were at the hearing that took place in Strasbourg, and the organization EAFJD was very much involved in the events leading up to this hearing.
Yes.
And of course, it garnered worldwide attention, not only because of the case itself, but because of the team that was representing Armenia, a very well-known, preeminent international law expert, Jeffrey Robertson, and Amal Almudin Clooney. Talk to me, if you will, about the hearing. What was the atmosphere? I know there were some protests taking place outside, so just give us a general idea of how the day began in Strasbourg on January 28.
Okay. Yes, as you mentioned, Maria, we were very much involved in this case from a long time. And I would like to make a short historical as to how we started working on this. It's been a full year, it's almost a full year that our office, the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy, was involved very actively in the case. As you very well know, on December 17th, 2013, we heard the case that Perincek's freedom of speech was being suppressed by Switzerland, and the case was, the court came to the verdict. And Switzerland had 3 months to appeal for the case to go where it was until 2 days ago, the Grand Chamber. And we, as EAFJD, we being in Brussels, being in the heart of Europe, we mobilized almost all Armenian communities, organizations via the Armenian national committees, the local Armenian national committees in Europe and elsewhere as well. And we met with every single Swiss ambassadors in different countries. So, and we tried to mobilize at grassroots level that Switzerland has to appeal the verdict. And we are very much glad that this happened, and we had the public hearing 2 days ago. So this is a very short background as to how we were mobilized in the communities. Yes, and coming to the court on Wednesday, I will start with the protestations. Of course, there were many protests. There were many protesters arrived from all around Europe, mainly Turks. And I saw a very interesting pattern. The Turkish organizations in Europe, they had mobilized the Turkish the Turkish people of Europe to go to the court. It struck me that they all had the Turkish flags with Kemal's picture on the flag. So this is interesting. We found this very interesting. Of course, there were Azerbaijani flags as well, and shouting shouting anti-Armenian slogans rather than supporting the freedom of speech or even Perincek. Of course, against them there were the Armenians of Strasbourg, the Armenian community of Strasbourg. They had also making some noise with the Armenian flags, Aznavour singing in the background. So this was outside the court, of course.
Right.
Inside there were lots and lots of journalists. Almost half of them were from Turkish media. From Armenia, there were 8 journalists and some international journalists, mainly from Switzerland. The paparazzi were involved somehow because of Amal Almudin Clooney, of course. They were more interested in her dress and gown and her appearance rather than what she has to say, unfortunately. But anyhow, it gave an extra focus on the court and in the case. I would like to also mention that in the court we saw especially some Turkish politicians, namely Deniz Baykal, and Egemen Bağış, who until recently was the Minister for Europe of Turkey. And we know that Baykal was succeeded by Kılıçdaroğlu. So we see the AKP, we see the Kemalist Party, we see Perincek, nationalist, and a little information which is very important is that until 26th of January, Perincek was in prison. And the Istanbul court gave its consent so to release Perincek. So he comes and takes part in this very important national issue for Turks to represent himself in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the composition of people, and I believe there was also a travel ban imposed on Perincek, which the Istanbul court lifted for him to participate in the case. You know, we were following EAFJD on JD on Twitter and Facebook, and you were using a hashtag,
yes.
Justice versus denial.
Exactly.
Certainly, as Armenians, we understand that this was a landmark hearing. This is a very important hearing for Armenia. Although some parties didn't want to place the stress on the veracity of the Armenian genocide itself, but rather on, you know, the freedom of speech or that incites hatred, actually. Why this hashtag, justice versus denial?
Yes. We have to stress here that the Turkish, the defense policy, Perincek's defense was mainly trying to show that Perincek doesn't refuse, doesn't deny the genocide. Mainly they were saying that Perincek acknowledges the massacres, acknowledges the killing. Actually, Perincek himself said that I like Armenians. I like what they have done. I appreciate what they have done for the Ottoman Empire. I appreciate what they have done for Turkey. I suffer, I sympathize with the Armenians, but the killings were not a genocide. I cannot give the legal term of genocide to what happened to the Armenians in 1915. And of course, he refers the Turkish official line, the denialist line, that Turks were massacred as well. It was a war. We had to empty. For security reasons, we had to take out the Armenian population from their homelands. So this was the context of the Turkish defense, Perincek's defense. And we see this pattern in the last couple of years, which hides in a new package, the denialist package. So this is exactly why we have this justice versus denial hashtag. It's justice for the Armenian people, of course, justice that to all victims for genocide, and it was, if not explicitly, but between the lines, that this is what it was being discussed within the court, of course.
Mm-hmm. It's also interesting to note that a number of Turkish and Armenian NGOs formed a coalition to also submit their case as a third party. How important was that to the overall case, in your opinion?
Yes. I will start with the Turkish human rights organizations. There were two human rights Turkish organizations. And these organizations, they also had submitted their memorandum to the court. Actually, there were 8 different memos handed into the court. And they were from the Turkish human rights associations and from other Armenian organizations, namely from France, the CCAF, and of course from the Swiss Armenian community from Swiss, of course. And here, EAFJD, we also had our part in consulting some of the parties, and we had drafted one or some of the notes together. And this is important because from the 8, almost all were from the Armenian side, and they were mentioning the full context of the trial, of the hearings. And especially the Turkish organization, human rights organization, they had explicitly in 11 pages explained who Perincek is, what Perincek has been doing, what's his main goal, and what is the context of the Talat Pasha committee of which Perincek presides in the whole hearing and his denialist tour that he's making in Europe. So I'm sure that these memorandums are very, very much helpful in the whole case, and they will play their role soon, of course.
And what was the overall impression when the hearing concluded? I mean, you were there, we were following it live stream, but being there, sensing the atmosphere in the room, you know, we had the Armenian case being presented, we had the Turkish side being presented, we had the Swiss side being presented. If you can be as objective as possible, I know it's difficult when you are presenting a side in this case. What was the sense of the cases being heard? How did the Armenian side, how was it perceived, do you think?
Yes, as you mentioned, the Armenian side was an interested party to the case. The defense was Perincek, and Switzerland was defending herself as a country. So in the court, we had Switzerland and Armenia defending the law together against Perincek and Turkey, of course. The Turks were very much present and with their numbers and stuff, with the journalists and all over. But I will gladly say that the Armenian presence was very strong, and especially, and I'm glad to say this, that we had the only female representative in the court in Amal Alamuddin Clooney, and she was the assistant or the counselor to Geoffrey Robertson, and they were the official lawyers or representative of the Republic of Armenia, who had sent the general prosecutor, Gevor Kostanyan. I will say that we all are very happy with the Armenian presence, with the Armenian team, and as we mentioned there in the court, in the media, we are very much positive that things will be overturned. The verdict will be changed of what it was a year ago.
Right. But I think that, you know, before we sign off and conclude our conversation, I think it's important to note that oftentimes, you know, you are in the heart of Europe, and there's always double standards when it comes to truth and justice and political expediency. What's interesting is that the ECHR does not allow the denial of the Holocaust, yet it was fine with denying the reality existence of the Armenian genocide. This came up during the hearing. What was your sense about that?
Yes, we feel that they shouldn't have made a comparison of the Holocaust with the genocide or the rest of the genocide that have taken place. And this is something that even Amal Clooney mentioned, that she was very much disappointed that a court of such a level, a European Court of Human Rights, had made the comparison between the Holocaust and the genocide. So as to why choose one genocide, a killing, over other killings. And this is why she was stressing that the court has to correct the wrong that it did a year ago. And we are very much hopeful that this will be the case.
Right. I think one important point that Geoffrey Robertson said during his speech was that there is no country other than Turkey that denies the Armenian genocide today.
Exactly. Officially, Turkey is the only country decided that the genocide is not a genocide. We all acknowledge that some other countries do not want to take an official position, an official stance on the Armenian genocide due to geopolitical considerations, be it Azerbaijan, be it Turkey, or in general the Armenian-Turkish case. But the only country officially said that this was not a genocide is Turkey, and this is what Geoffrey Robertson mentioned. And he also mentioned that Talat Pasha is the Ottoman or Turkish Hitler, and Perincek admiring Talat, it's not the correct approach being taken in Europe.
Right, and as Perincek said, he was there to defend European values.
Exactly.
So if that's what European values are, then I think we're all in a little bit of trouble. Bedo, thank you so much. We expect to be hearing the verdict in about, what, 6 to 8 months?
Well, they've said that it could take 6, 8, or even 10 months. So we will be following and looking forward to the just and the correct verdict for us Armenians and for justice in general.
And we will be following your activities in Brussels. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about this very important case.
Thank you for having us.
And I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest via Skype from Brussels was Bedo Demirjian, the Communications and PR Officer of the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy. Stay with CivilNet.